Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to bring you a brief review and demo of a new foundation and powder that have recently launched. The first is the Tarte Double Duty Shape Tape Foundation. I have it in the matte formula, and the powder that I'm going to be talking about today is the new Becca Hydra-Mist Set and Refresh Powder. So these launched a couple months ago. In reading the descriptions of them both, I thought there were some really interesting differences between other things out on the market, and I couldn't wait to put them to test on my more mature skin. So if you're interested in seeing a review and a demo of these products, then just keep on watching. Okay, so first I'm going to talk about the Tarte Shape Tape Foundation. So it comes in nice, this is the frosted glass bottle because it is the matte formula. The hydrating one comes in a shinier bottle. It has a huge doe foot applicator, just like the concealer, if you're familiar with the Tarte Shape Tape concealer. The consistency of this is a really nice, kind of almost like a gel-like consistency. In the demo, you'll see me putting this on and you can kind of get a little better idea. Now, the claims on this foundation, what really made it just interesting to me is not only is it a matte foundation that says it is full coverage like their concealer is, but it says that it smooths over pores and imperfections with rich airbrushed full coverage that dries to a flawless matte finish using a unique concealer-inspired wand. The formula absorbs oil and shine while leaving skin creaseless, hydrated. That was what really perked my interest. A hydrating matte formula. Anyway, we'll get into that. Free of flakiness or cakiness and helping to improve skin's health with every application. It's made with skin invigorating ingredients including vitamin E, also mineral pigments to help soothe and soften skin. It's hypoallergenic, waterproof, long-wearing, vegan, oil-free, talc-free, alcohol-free. So all of those things sounded quite amazing. And my more mature skin, I have kind of tended to veer away from more matte finish foundations. But when I was seeing some of the reviews on this, they were noting that it didn't dry down super matte to where it looked drying. And in fact, over time throughout the day, it seems like it wears a little better and just kind of meshes more with your skin and becomes more of this beautiful kind of natural finish. And I attest to all of those things. I do feel like when you first put it on, it's going to look a little more matte, but not a dry matte. I do feel like as I've been using this almost solidly for the last week and a half, every day, I do feel like my skin is softer at the end of the day, which might also be partly contributed by the powder that I'm going to talk about in a minute, and my new favorite facial oil that I'm using underneath this. But overall, I have found this foundation to wear really well throughout the day. I am a combination girl though, and I do still get a little bit of shine through the center of my face. I've used this foundation with multiple different powders, and I find it all to be about the same story. About 6 hours in, I usually end up with a little bit of shine, but recently I've been going over my skin at that point with this new Becca powder, which I'll talk about in a second, and it's like a miracle. So now as far as the shade range on this, there's been just so much talk about it. I'm not going to get too much into it here. I'll talk a little bit about it in the demo, but there are 18 shades available. I have mine in light sand, and it is the perfect match for my wintertime ghost-like pale skin. So if you are in the super, super pale end of the spectrum and you have a really difficult time finding foundations to match your skin, which I do most of the time you see me, I usually have a little bit of sunless tanner on. I find it so much easier to match my sunless tanned skin than my super pale skin. But this is a great foundation match, color match for me. As I show in the demo, This, I believe, works best without a primer. It's kind of like the Bare Skin, the Bare Minerals Bare Pro foundation. Just like that one, I feel like it goes better right over your moisturizer. I think if a foundation has skin improving ingredients, it needs to be directly on the skin to provide the best results. So that's just my experience. I've tried it with a number of different primers and by itself, and I feel like it is much better on its own. Also, like I said, I've used it with various different powders, but my favorite is either the peach powder or this new Becca powder. So now let's get into this powder here. Let me tell you a little bit about this and then we'll get to the demo. So this powder says it is to set and chill. It is an ultra translucent refreshing powder that dusts on like a mist and sets powder to help extend wear. This weightless powder sets, perfects, and refreshes makeup for a silky, smooth, invisible finish. You know, I've heard all that stuff before, but wait for it. Formulated with 50% water. How do you have water in a powder? That is what really intrigued me. I thought, this sounds too weird. I gotta try it. So formulated with 50% water, this powder makes skin look awakened and fresh upon application. Apply throughout the day to refresh and rejuvenate makeup, ideal for all skin tones. It is truly a translucent powder. Comes in a beautiful package here, and the lid, there is a locking sifter right here that lifts, and inside there is a mesh. And the way I like to apply this is I will just put a little bit into the lid of the actual powder and then put my powder puff in there. Now, this formula, it is, when you put it on your face, it is exactly like if you've ever misted a setting spray on your face. It feels like you have just done that. It is super cooling on the face and it does provide moisture, but the weird thing is it not only perfects the skin, but it makes it look completely matte. So I was thinking, okay, hydrating, it's probably going to be illuminating. It's not that at all. It definitely mattifies the face, but it doesn't make it look dry. It doesn't make it look cakey. It does not emphasize fine lines or pores. And in fact, it makes your pores and lines almost disappear. And what I have found, this powder works best. It's best at touching up your makeup throughout the day. Now, it does a great job. I have it right now on. I used it to set my foundation today, but I find that it's real extension of wear time of your foundation happens when you reapply it in the middle of the day to any areas that you've gotten shiny. I tried this with a different foundation and I had applied like an oil and a really glowy primer, and so by midday my super combo skin was really shiny down the center. And I should have taken a blotting paper to blot first before applying powder, but I thought, you know what? I am going to try this powder directly over it. So I took out my little powder puff and placed it on my shininess, and it was instantly mattified. There was no cakiness. You couldn't see the powder. It was matte and like perfected. And the rest of the day, I had no more shine peek through. It was amazing. So not only does it look amazing, but it feels super refreshing. I can't wait to use this in our hot summer months here. Just dabbing this on really makes your skin just feel refreshed. Now, the last thing I'm going to touch on, and then we'll get into the demo, is how to apply it or what tool to apply this with. I've tried it with various different brushes, from this Echo Tools fluffy brush to a couple of different synthetic brushes. Brushes don't work. It's almost like if you were to take this brush and mist it with water and then put it in powder. Imagine what would happen. It just kind of clumps in the bristles. That's exactly what happens with this powder. Because it's 50% water, it doesn't play well with brushes. However, it plays beautifully with powder puffs. So these are like just you know, inexpensive ones from Ulta or e.l.f. I also recently have been trying this out from e.l.f. It's like the Laura Mercier Big Powder Puff. But you'll see in the demo, this is how I use to apply it, and it's definitely the best way to do that. So without further ado, let's jump into the demo. Okay, I'm going to start by just putting this directly on my skin. As I mentioned in the review, I feel like this foundation works best without a primer. The only thing on my face right now is this Acure. It is the Brilliantly Brightening Citrus Argan Oil, and I love this stuff. It does have kind of a brightening effect, so you can see I've got a lot of just kind of some color coming through. It's not like rosacea or anything, but when I put on this foundation, you're gonna think I totally chose the wrong color. But I'm trying to match my super pale neck. Now, I am going to put this on. It looks like I'm applying a lot, but that was just one dip in. There's two. And I just like to kind of distribute this well around the face and then blend it in with a sponge. I find if you don't kind of slightly blend this out before going in with your sponge, it can absorb a lot. So I think this foundation works much better blended in with a sponge as opposed to a brush. Now, this is reported to be full coverage, and obviously with a sponge, it's going to shear out the coverage. If you apply it with a brush, it is fuller, but I find that the brush just kind of makes it look a little cakey. So on my more mature skin, because this is a more matte foundation, I prefer blending it in with a blender sponge and then just going over the areas that need a little extra coverage afterward. And usually I actually prefer going over those areas with a concealer because I just don't love how this layers because it dries so quickly. Now, the last thing I'm going to touch on, I know I talked a little bit about this in the review, but the shade range. All I'm going to say is I went on Tarte's website just last night just to kind of do a little extra research of my own again. And just go to Tarte's website, do your own research before you make a judgment. I found a very different representation of the shade range. There are 18 shades in this foundation, and I found a very different representation of the shade range on the Tarte website than what I've been hearing and seeing flood social media. So go to Tarte's website, make a judgment for yourself. All right, so I've got that blended in, and as you can see, it is a matte finish, but it's not, it doesn't look dry, but it also has not covered everything. So like I said earlier, sometimes I'll go back in with just a little more foundation, but I kind of like that fact that it's not super mask-like, because I think that can age your skin a little bit. So you can see, even by going over those spots again, I don't know if it's coming through on camera, but you can still see my dark spot right there, sunspot showing through. So I would definitely put this more in the medium full coverage, not full coverage. Now, the other thing is I thought this would be a great under eye concealer, since, you know, it's supposed to be like the Tarte Shape Tape concealer. Don't like this at all under the eyes. So I'm going to apply my concealer, and then we're going to get on to powder and talk about that. Okay, so I added concealer under my eyes. I used my IT Cosmetics Bye Bye Under Eye. And then I went over that dark spot and a couple spots with my Tarte Shape Tape concealer. Now for powder. So this amazing Hydra-Mist powder, by Becca. This foundation, as you can see, it's settled in for a couple minutes on my skin, and it's not super tacky, but because I usually use a powder bronzer, powder blush, all that stuff, I do like to add a little bit of setting powder to my face first to help those easily blend. So I'm going to pop open this little lid here, and you can, I don't know if you can see the cloud, such a super finely milled powder. I'm going to put a little bit in the lid, and I'm going to use this huge old e.l.f. Powder puff. This is very similar to the really expensive Laura Mercier one, and this one was $2. Gotta love that. So I am going to now press this powder in, and it literally feels like I am pressing water into my skin. So I'm just going to powder this one side of my face so that you can see it doesn't change the color of your foundation, but it is slightly more matte here than it is here. Now on my forehead, I'm loving this because I really do feel like it helps further disguise lines and perfect these areas of enlarged pores. So even with that foundation helping that situation, I still find that this powder step is what kind of really makes it kind of really much more perfected on the skin. So again, this powder is not providing any extra coverage. It is just pressing water into the skin, and at the same time creating just this nice flawless finish. And there you go. All right, guys, so that wraps up this video. I hope that it was helpful for you if you've been curious about these products. Hopefully it gave you some additional information to help you decide whether it's something that you might want to try. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you like reviews like this, please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you next time. Bye.